I never thought I'd find myself in this position, but here I am sharing my story. My name is Mark, and I used to be married to a woman named Lisa. We were together for 8 years, what I thought was a solid marriage. Our lives were intertwined in the small things: grocery runs, lazy weekends, and our mutual love for movies. But over time, it became clear that things weren't quite right, and I started noticing the cracks in our relationship. It began with Lisa's attitude towards my hobbies. I'm an avid gamer and a huge fan of comic books. It's a world I escape to where I can relax and enjoy myself. At first, Lisa used to join me for game nights, but gradually she became dismissive. "Why don't you grow up, Mark?" she'd say with a laugh that stung more than it amused me. "You're not some kid anymore." I brushed it off, telling myself she was just teasing. But her comments became more cutting over time, and it felt like she was mocking a part of who I am. It was hard to ignore the feelings of rejection creeping in. Then, there were the subtle changes. Lisa started coming home later than usual, claiming work was busy at her office. She's a marketing manager, so it made some sense in a busy corporate environment. I accepted it, even offered to help with dinner when she was swamped. But deep down, I felt something was off. She'd often be glued to her phone, texting and giggling at something that clearly wasn't work-related. I tried to push it out of my mind, thinking it was just a phase, but the uneasy feeling grew. One evening, as I was scrolling through social media, I came across a post that made my heart sink. It was a picture of Lisa at a coworker's house, laughing and embracing him. The caption read, "Best night ever, can't wait for the next adventure." My heart raced and my blood ran cold. My hands shook as I clicked on her tagged photos, and there he was, Jason, a guy from her office who I'd met once at a holiday party. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The late nights, the secrecy, the dismissive comments. My world fell apart in an instant, and I felt my stomach churn. I confronted her the next day. I remember how calm I tried to appear despite my insides twisting with rage. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but my heart pounding. She looked at me wide-eyed as if she knew I had uncovered her secret. I watched her face morph from surprise to defensive, like a child caught with their hand in the cookie jar. "What's wrong?" She feigned innocence, her voice almost too high-pitched. I showed her the photo, and her demeanor shifted entirely. "That's nothing," she snapped, her face turning red. "We were just hanging out as friends." The lies rolled off her tongue effortlessly, but I could see the cracks in her facade. "You're lying, Lisa. This isn't just friends hanging out," I pressed, trying to keep my cool while my emotions boiled beneath the surface. She stammered, backtracking. "I mean, it's not what you think. We were just celebrating a project. You know how stressful work gets." But her excuses felt empty, and I could sense the truth lurking just beneath the surface. Anger surged through me. How could she be so casual about it? How could she betray the trust we built over the years? And that was when the emotional roller coaster truly began. I felt shock wash over me, followed by anger, sharp and bitter. How could she do this to me? I loved her, supported her, and put up with her dismissive comments about my hobbies. Now it felt like I was the joke. Sadness crept in next, like a fog settling over my heart. I thought about the life we built together, the dreams we shared, and how they all felt shattered in an instant. I needed to decide how to move forward. I could feel the weight of the betrayal dragging me down. I thought about fighting for our marriage, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't be the same. I saw where this path was leading, and I didn't want to walk it any longer. So I made my decision. I was going to reclaim my life. After the confrontation with Lisa, I felt like I'd stepped into a different reality. The home we shared suddenly felt foreign, like a stage set for a play I didn't want to be part of anymore. I spent those first few days in a haze, replaying our conversations over and over, trying to pick apart the threads of our relationship. I felt like a detective trying to solve a case that was both painfully personal and devastatingly real. I went through our shared spaces with a new lens. Every corner of our home seemed to whisper memories, and each picture frame felt like an accusation. I picked up the framed photo from our wedding day, and it was like looking at a stranger. The smiles we wore felt fake now, tainted by betrayal. The laughter in the background of those photos echoed in my head, reminding me of a happier time that felt like a lifetime ago. Days turned into a week, and I couldn't shake the anger and sadness. I kept thinking about how Lisa had mocked my hobbies and belittled my passions, while she was busy creating a fantasy life with Jason, her coworker. I realized I could either wallow in self-pity or find a way to turn this situation around. I opted for the latter. I began to focus on myself, to find a way to reclaim my identity that had been overshadowed in our marriage. I found solace in my gaming again, diving deep into the worlds I had once enjoyed. I rediscovered the thrill of completing quests, the camaraderie of online friendships, and the satisfaction of leveling up my characters. I even started streaming my gameplay online, something I had often mentioned to Lisa. Each gaming session became a therapy session of sorts, a moment to escape the reality that had become my life. As I threw myself into this new routine, I felt a shift in my perspective. I started to enjoy the freedom of not having to justify my interest to anyone. The more I immersed myself in my hobbies, the more I realized how much I'd sacrificed my own happiness for the sake of our marriage. I was no longer that guy who felt the need to downplay his passions to fit into someone else's expectations. Instead, I was reclaiming my identity, one level at a time. I began to reconnect with friends I hadn't seen in years. I reached out to my college buddies, and we arranged a gaming night at my place. The laughter, the banter, and the shared nostalgia felt revitalizing. I realized that I had a whole world of support outside of my marriage, a community that appreciated me for who I was. While Lisa was likely off with Jason, pretending to enjoy the excitement of a new relationship, I was finding joy in the simple moments with friends who valued my interests. But the emotional turmoil was still there, lurking beneath the surface. I thought about how to confront Lisa again, this time from a place of strength rather than hurt. She had woven a web of lies, and I needed to cut through it with clarity. I wanted her to know the impact of her actions, not just on me but on our relationship and everything we had built. As I prepared for our next conversation, I jotted down what I wanted to say. It was important for me to express how her actions had affected me, but also how I was moving forward. I realized I didn't need her validation anymore. I was building my life again, piece by piece. Finally, the day came when we were both home at the same time, and I knew it was now or never. I called her into the living room, my heart pounding as I tried to maintain my composure. "Lisa, we need to talk again," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She sat down, looking wary, but I could see a hint of defiance in her posture. "What now, Mark?" she asked, crossing her arms. "I want to talk about what's been happening," I began, feeling a surge of confidence. "I've taken some time to think about everything you've done. Your affair with Jason is not just some silly mistake, it's a betrayal of our entire relationship." Her face twisted into annoyance. "I told you it's not what you think." "You're overreacting," she shot back, but I pressed on, holding firm. "I'm not the one overreacting. You've been lying to me and I deserve better than that," I said, my voice unwavering. "I'm done pretending everything is okay. I'm reclaiming my life, and that starts with acknowledging what you've done." The silence that followed weighed heavily between us. I could see her struggling to find her words, and in that moment, I knew I was no longer the naive husband who would accept her excuses without question. This was the beginning of my journey to reclaim my freedom, and I was ready to move on. The confrontation was tense, and for a moment I thought Lisa might actually take responsibility for her actions. But instead, she went on the defensive, her anger spilling over. "You always do this. You make everything about you, Mark. Why can't you understand that I needed someone to connect with? You were too busy with your stupid games to notice me." Her words were like daggers, hitting me in all the wrong places. I had sacrificed so much for us, and here she was, trying to turn the narrative around. It felt surreal, like I was trapped in a twisted version of reality where I was somehow the villain. "This is not about me ignoring you, Lisa," I replied, keeping my tone calm despite the tempest raging inside me. "This is about you betraying my trust. You chose to be with someone else instead of talking to me about your feelings." She scoffed, rolling her eyes. "You wouldn't have listened anyway. You're so wrapped up in your little world that you didn't see me drifting away." It was infuriating. I wanted to scream that I could have fixed things if only she'd been honest, but all I could do was stare at her, grappling with the realization that she had chosen to disregard the foundation of our marriage for a fling. "Is this what you want?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "To throw everything we built away for a guy you barely know?" But her response was a dismissive shrug, and at that moment I knew the truth. I was fighting a battle she wasn't interested in. We exchanged words that felt more like arrows than conversations, each one piercing through the remnants of our relationship. I was determined to lay everything bare, to confront the lie that our marriage had become. "I want you to understand the impact of this, Lisa," I said, my heart racing. "You've torn us apart, and I refuse to keep pretending that everything can go back to normal after this." Her expression shifted as she caught the depth of my resolve. "So what are you saying? That this is the end?" she asked, her tone suddenly more defensive, tinged with a hint of vulnerability. "I can't be married to someone who doesn't respect me, who doesn't value what we had," I replied, feeling a strange mix of sadness and liberation. "I need to move on for my own sanity." The words felt heavy on my tongue, but they also felt right. I was declaring my independence, my right to happiness that had been stolen. The aftermath of that confrontation was surreal. I could see the anger brewing in her eyes, but there was also a flicker of fear. I had held up a mirror to our twisted relationship, and she didn't like what she saw. It was a moment of clarity for me, a revelation that I was finally ready to take back control. The next few days were a whirlwind. I moved through our home like a ghost, dodging the memories that hung in every corner. Lisa and I hardly spoke unless it was absolutely necessary. I started to pack my things, slowly reclaiming my space. I didn't want to make a scene, but I also wanted to make it clear that I wasn't backing down. I had decided to separate, to create a life for myself that didn't include her betrayal. As I packed, I felt a mix of emotions swirling around me: anger, sadness, but also an undeniable sense of freedom. I was finally beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I reached out to friends for support, seeking reassurance that I wasn't alone in this. Their encouraging words reminded me of who I was outside of my marriage, who I had forgotten in the midst of trying to make things work. I also started to focus on my hobbies again, fully immersing myself in the gaming community. I joined online forums and met people who shared my passions, who appreciated the joy of gaming without judgment. Each night turned into an opportunity to escape, to build new connections, and to rekindle my love for the things that made me happy. It was exhilarating, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was breathing again. However, the reality of my decision loomed over me. I knew that I had to formally end things with Lisa, to make it official. I couldn't keep living in limbo. The thought of that conversation made my stomach churn, but I understood it was necessary. Finally, the day arrived when I knew I had to face her one last time. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. I had learned to embrace my emotions, to face them head-on, and I was determined to do the same in this conversation. It wouldn't be easy, but I owed it to myself to end this chapter of my life with dignity. When I walked into the living room, Lisa was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She glanced up, and for a split second I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. I took a moment to collect my thoughts, then began. "Lisa, we need to finalize things," I said, my voice steady. Her expression hardened, and I knew this was going to be another difficult conversation, but I was ready for it. "I can't keep living in this broken state. We both deserve to find happiness, even if it's apart." Her eyes narrowed, and I braced myself for her reaction. I could feel the weight of the moment, but I refused to back down. I had fought for my happiness, and I was no longer afraid to embrace the truth. The tension in the room was palpable, and I could feel the air thicken with unspoken words. Lisa's demeanor shifted from indifference to outright hostility as she processed what I had just said. "So, this is really it, huh? You've made up your mind, just like that?" Her voice dripped with sarcasm, but underneath, I could see the vulnerability she was trying to mask. "Yes, I have," I replied, maintaining my composure. "I've thought long and hard about this, and it's what's best for both of us." A part of me wanted to reach out to comfort her, but I reminded myself that this wasn't about her anymore. It was about my journey towards healing and reclaiming my life. Best for us, she echoed, disbelief etched across her face. You mean best for you? You're just going to walk away from everything we built together over the years. That's exactly it, Lisa, I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside me. You've walked away from our marriage long before I ever decided to. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. Her expression transformed, a flicker of sadness breaking through her defensive facade. You think this is easy for me? You think I wanted any of this? There was a quiver in her voice that suggested she was grappling with her own regret. Maybe you should have thought of that before you decided to sleep with Jason. I shot back, my anger flaring momentarily. You're the one who turned this into a situation where I have to walk away. I deserve someone who respects me, who values what we had. The silence that followed hung heavy between us, and I could sense her internal struggle. She seemed to wrestle with the reality of her choices, and a part of me felt a twinge of sympathy, but I quickly pushed that aside. I had to stay focused on my own healing. I never meant for it to go this far, she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I could manage both worlds. I thought it was just a phase. Manage both worlds. I couldn't help but scoff. You mean juggling a marriage and an affair? How can you say that? How can you think that's okay? Her defenses crumbled, and for the first time, I saw a glimpse of the woman I fell in love with, the woman who cared about our relationship and our future. I was lonely, Mark. I felt abandoned. You were so consumed by your hobbies and your gaming that I thought I had to find happiness somewhere else. The word struck a nerve. I had been so focused on my own rejuvenation and reclaiming my hobbies that I hadn't considered how she felt. But instead of taking responsibility, she had chosen betrayal. This isn't about me, Lisa. It was your choice to cheat. I can't take blame for your decisions. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, tears brimming in her eyes. But I get it now. I see that I've messed everything up. The sincerity in her voice gave me pause. Part of me wanted to believe it, to hold on to the hope that maybe we could salvage something from the wreckage. But the other part reminded me of the pain, the betrayal. I had spent too long trying to keep our relationship afloat, and now I needed to prioritize myself. I need to go, I said softly. My heart ached for her, but I knew I had to stick to my decision. I'll stay until you find a place. We can work through the logistics, but I can't stay in this house with you anymore. Her face fell, and I could see the realization wash over her. You're serious, aren't you? You're really going to leave? Yes, I am, I affirmed, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. It's time for me to move on. The next few weeks were a blur of packing and logistics. I found a small apartment not far from where we had lived, a place that would allow me to establish my independence. As I sorted through our belongings, I stumbled upon mementos from our relationship, old concert tickets, photos from our trips, and little notes she had left tucked away in drawers. Each artifact reminded me of the love we once shared, but they also reinforced my resolve. I couldn't let nostalgia blind me to the reality of what had transpired. When I finally moved into my new place, the first night was surreal. The silence felt foreign yet liberating. I set up my gaming rig, filled the shelves with my comic books, and put together a makeshift living room. It was a blank canvas, a space, waiting for me to fill it with who I was, without the shadows of betrayal lurking behind me. As I settled into my new routine, I began to explore the city again, rediscovering the corners I had once loved. I reconnected with friends, indulging in activities I had put on hold for years. Game nights turned into real-life outings, and I found myself laughing again, genuinely laughing, not just masking the pain I had felt during my marriage. But even with all the excitement of this new chapter, there were moments when the weight of the past would creep in. I would catch myself thinking about Lisa, wondering if she was okay, if she had truly learned from her mistakes. I wrestled with the questions of whether I should reach out or just let the past remain buried. But in those moments of doubt, I reminded myself why I left. I deserved someone who would cherish me, not someone who would tear me down. And just as I was gaining my footing, I received a text from Lisa one evening. It was late, and I hesitated, my heart racing as I opened the message. "Can we talk? I think I finally understand what I lost." My stomach twisted. A part of me felt a flicker of hope, but I quickly extinguished that flame. I had moved on, and I needed to protect that newfound freedom. I took a deep breath and typed back, "I think it's best if we don't. I need to focus on myself now." That was it. I hit send, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The emotional roller coaster was far from over, but I had taken a significant step toward healing. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, and I was determined to build a life that was truly mine. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself adjusting to this new chapter in my life. My apartment became a sanctuary, a place where I could explore my interests without judgment and rediscover the joy that had been overshadowed during my marriage. I filled my weekends with gaming marathons, comic book shopping, and reconnecting with friends, all the things I had pushed aside for the sake of my relationship with Lisa. One night, I decided to host a gaming party to celebrate my newfound freedom. I invited a mix of old friends and new acquaintances I had met online. Setting up the living room with snacks and drinks, I felt a sense of anticipation. I hadn't realized how much I had missed this kind of camaraderie, the excitement of sharing a game, the laughter over failed missions, and the connection that came with enjoying a common passion. As my friends started arriving, the atmosphere shifted from initial awkwardness to joyous excitement. The sound of laughter filled my apartment, and for the first time in ages I felt like I belonged. We dove into game after game, cheering each other on and playfully trash-talking. The energy was infectious, and I relished every moment of it. In the midst of the chaos, I spotted someone I hadn't expected, Rachel, a girl I had met while gaming online. We had chatted frequently but had never met in person. She walked in with her warm smile, bringing an unexpected spark of excitement into the room. We quickly fell into conversation, sharing our favorite gaming moments and laughing over our shared interests. As the night progressed, Rachel and I found ourselves sitting on the couch, engrossed in a game while the others cheered us on. I felt a flutter of something familiar, an attraction, a connection that had been absent for so long. It was exhilarating. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of hope creeping back in. After the party, Rachel and I exchanged numbers and our conversations continued over text. We bonded over our favorite games and shared stories about our lives. I found myself looking forward to her messages, and with each exchange, I felt that familiar spark igniting in my chest. It was both exciting and terrifying. Meanwhile, I kept my distance from Lisa. Despite her occasional messages checking in, I knew it was best for both of us to maintain boundaries. I didn't want to revisit the pain of our past, and I was determined to keep moving forward. I realized I was finally starting to heal, to understand that my happiness didn't hinge on anyone else. But there was a moment about 2 months after our separation when Lisa reached out again. This time it was different. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she wrote. "I've been talking to a therapist and I realize how much I took you for granted. I miss you. And I'd like to talk if you're open to it." I sat there staring at the message, my heart racing. Part of me wanted to give her a chance, to hear her out and see if she had genuinely changed. But another part of me reminded me of the pain she had caused. I had spent so long navigating the fallout of her betrayal, and I wasn't sure I was ready to open that door again. After much deliberation, I decided to reply. "I appreciate you reaching out, Lisa. I think it's great that you're seeking help, but I need to be honest. I'm not interested in rekindling our relationship. I've worked hard to rebuild my life and I need to keep moving forward." It felt liberating to send that message. I wasn't being cruel, I was just being honest. I had come too far to look back now, and I owed it to myself to protect my newfound freedom. In the weeks that followed, Rachel and I continued to grow closer. We hung out more often, sharing our love for gaming and exploring new interests together. I felt like I was finally becoming the person I had always wanted to be, and it was a beautiful sensation. Rachel brought a lightness into my life that I hadn't realized I was missing. Just when I thought life couldn't get any better, I was caught off guard one evening when Rachel surprised me with a dinner date. She had planned it all, cooked a delicious meal, set up candles, and even picked out a great movie for us to watch afterward. As we sat together, sharing stories and laughter, I felt a warmth envelop me that I hadn't experienced in years. "Mark, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate you," Rachel said, looking into my eyes with a sincerity that made my heart flutter. "You're an incredible person, and I'm so glad we found each other." Her words struck a chord deep within me. I realized how far I had come from the pain of my past. I had made a choice to prioritize my happiness, and standing there with Rachel felt like a validation of that decision. I had found someone who appreciated me for who I was, someone who didn't belittle my passions but celebrated them. As our relationship blossomed, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this point. The heartbreak had led me to discover resilience I never knew I had. I had learned the importance of self-worth and the value of being true to myself. I knew life would continue to throw challenges my way, but I felt equipped to handle them. I had built a community of friends who supported me, rekindled my love for my hobbies, and found a meaningful connection with someone new. As I moved forward, I also wanted to share what I had learned with others who might find themselves in similar situations. I realized that acknowledging hurt and betrayal was essential, but moving on was equally important. I understood that healing takes time, but it's a journey worth taking. My story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about rediscovering myself, reclaiming my happiness, and understanding that love should never come at the cost of self-respect. I had learned to embrace my passions unapologetically, and that was the greatest victory of all. As I embraced this new chapter of my life, I found myself reflecting on everything that had transpired. The journey from heartbreak to self-discovery was far from easy, but it had shaped me into a stronger person. I had been forced to confront my emotions, confront the lies that had been woven into my marriage, and ultimately confront myself. Rachel and I continued to explore our relationship, and I was grateful for her patience and understanding. She respected my need to process my past while also encouraging me to embrace the future. We spent our weekends gaming together, attending comic conventions, and discovering new hobbies that brought us both joy. It felt good to share those moments with someone who appreciated and celebrated the things I loved rather than critiquing them. One evening, as we were curled up on the couch playing co-op games, I turned to Rachel and said, "You know, I think I finally understand what it means to truly connect with someone." She paused the game and looked at me with those bright eyes of hers, a smile spreading across her face. "What do you mean?" "I mean, after everything with Lisa, I thought I wouldn't find happiness again. But I've realized that love shouldn't come with conditions. It should be about support, understanding, and just enjoying each other's company." Rachel nodded, her expression sincere. "You deserve that, Mark." "We all do. I'm glad you're in a place where you can embrace who you are." Those words meant the world to me. I felt a rush of gratitude for the support I had found in Rachel and for the healing journey I had embarked on. It was a reminder that life often throws us curveballs, and how we choose to respond defines our path forward. Not long after, I hit a milestone I hadn't anticipated. My gaming stream began to gain traction. I had started it as a way to express myself and connect with others who shared my interests, and it slowly transformed into something more substantial. I found myself building a community of gamers who resonated with my experiences and the authenticity I brought to my streams. One night, while interacting with my audience, I shared a bit of my story, how I had gone through a difficult marriage, only to find strength and joy in my passions afterwards. The response was overwhelming. People reached out to share their own stories of resilience, and I realized the power of vulnerability. It was in those moments that I truly understood the importance of community. I wasn't just sharing games. I was sharing life experiences, and I felt a sense of purpose that fueled me further. I grew more confident in my identity, knowing that my past didn't define me but rather led me to where I was now. With Rachel by my side, we began to plan a trip to a gaming convention together. It felt exhilarating to share this experience with someone who understood my journey. I could envision us exploring the event, interacting with creators, and immersing ourselves in a world that celebrated the things we loved. We were building memories, and it felt incredible. As the date of the convention approached, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I had come. I had gone from feeling lost and betrayed to finding my footing, rediscovering my passions, and embracing love that felt genuine and nurturing. The day of the convention arrived, and as we walked through the bustling venue, I felt a rush of excitement. Everywhere I looked, I saw people who shared the same enthusiasm for gaming and comics. Rachel and I laughed, took pictures, and even participated in a few panels. It was liberating, the kind of joy I hadn't felt in a long time. Later in the evening, as we settled down for a break, Rachel turned to me and said, "I'm so glad we came here together. You've come such a long way, Mark." I smiled, feeling a swell of gratitude. I never thought I could feel this way again. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. You've helped me see things differently. As we sat together, watching the lights and excitement around us, I realized that I had finally closed the chapter on my past, and I was ready to embrace everything that lay ahead. I learned that life doesn't always go as planned, but it's in those unexpected twists that we find our strength. I had learned to let go of the hurt and embrace the joy of gaming, of friendship, and of love. It was a beautiful reminder that while the past had shaped me, it didn't define my future. I was free to write my own story, and it was one filled with hope, laughter, and a newfound appreciation for the connections that truly mattered.